everybody, to another edition of the Rockpile Report podcast. We are live, allegedly. Hopefully this thing hasn't cratered yet. As I crack a fresh beer. Chris, are we rolling?
Yeah, we're rolling.
Baby. Woo!
Allegedly.
Allegedly, it is good to be back.
I tested this out. I'll drag it back over. I tested this out earlier this afternoon, and it said I had excellent connection for 5 minutes. I was doing a private YouTube, and even this thing says here the stream current bit rate is lower than the recommended bit rate. So,
well, we're trying, folks.
We're trying.
Here's what I love. Somebody opened up with the question, who's got the Skyline Chili tonight? It is time to break. If there was ever a time to break out Skyline Chili, it's when the Bills are 5-2, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the time to do it. If you're going to debase yourself and put that, sounds like settling for a field goal on 4th and 1 comparatively.
Yeah, we went to 9/11. We just got back like 10 minutes ago from having 9/11 with Greg and Aaron and Del Reed was there too. As I load up on my gold chains.
Is he chains up?
Yeah, 9/11. I don't know if anybody's all of our first times at 9/11. Top 5, maybe top 10. I'd put it in that 10 to 5 range. 8-offs. I've had 8-offs recently. 8-offs, I think, is better than 9/11.
I like this.
Come fight me.
I like Ralph Wilson Sr. Trying not to get sauce in the spiffy studio. Guys, this is 100% Chris. Right, like the fact that this thing exists, I take no credit for it, other than I'm the idiot behind a microphone that helped generate some of the cash that paid for this stuff. Chris is the genius behind all of this, guys. Let's give him a round of applause.
Well, I did. There's a 9-minute video with an in-depth studio tour that I put up on our YouTube page. You can go watch it whenever you feel like it, so you can get a better understanding of how things roll in here. As we won the game, so I'm having to.
He's having to put more. He's Mr. T now.
Yeah, I'm getting Mr. T, and you know what? I really haven't missed the boat yet. I've been pretty spot on putting these. Well, you guys watch me fight putting a chain on. I don't know how people from New Jersey get ready to go out.
Every dude from New Jersey must be like at least 10 minutes late to everything just because he's got to put on all of his gold chains.
Look at that. See that?
Oh, what is that?
Well, you're not even looking at the TV. It says excellent connection.
Look at you, Chris. So, maybe you figured it out, brother.
Yeah. So to knock down the fourth wall, while I try to chain up, so our ATEM Mini that we used for the video had an update. And usually, when you have computer programs, they might tell you you updated, but they might not get into specifics what was updated, and you just go, oh, cool, and you click on it. So apparently they updated the streaming service selection, and they split YouTube off into 2. One that runs at a higher bit rate, and that's what it put us on, and we just didn't know. So we get to use YouTube RTMP. I don't know what that means, but I guess that's at a lower bit rate. But enough bullshit. There we go.
I like
can we
the
get
comment.
Into the game?
I like this comment. We need a live gold necklace christening. Drew ceremoniously putting it on him like a Nobel Peace Prize.
Oh, we have the last one is the football.
I like this. Chris is going to start turning into the Hulk from the neck down.
Yeah, you can watch me put on my gold. I mean, God, this is, dude. If we go
Chris,
like 12-5,
apparently it's easier to chain up with a tank top on. You should investigate this for scientific purposes.
I can, but I don't have the upper body for a tank top.
You, Joe DeRosa, like who else? Who else has a significant case of dad bod? That's hilarious. Now, guys, let's get into this because I have a lot to say. The Week 7 recap: Bills 34, Titans 10. Let's dig right into it. I've got some stats of the game that I think kind of lay out kind of some of what you saw. How about rushing effectiveness? 5 total rushing first downs between both football teams. Allen had 3 yards rushing. Keon Coleman, 4 of 7 for 125 yards. Codrington, our returner, 5 punt returns for 56 yards, 1 kick return for 27 yards. which opened up the first touchdown drive of the game. Third down conversions. Buffalo, 3 of 10. Tennessee, 6 of 16. The timing of which was pretty inauspicious. Chris, if we want to talk about the game and the day, you got to start with the tailgate. Where does Sunday's tailgate rank in the hierarchy of all the tailgates you've been a part of?
Well, I will say it's the I put it number one for this season. I mean, Monday night tailgate against the Jaguars. Nobody drank all of the cocktails I had. I think I have maybe 1 or 2 left in each bottle from Sunday.
Sunday was
phenomenal tailgate
because it felt like the old days. We got there before sunup. You and me sitting in the parking lot telling jokes, kind of listening to comedy podcast stuff,
protect our parks,
talking about the reasons the Sabres are terrible, and then Iman shows up. And then the guy who owns the lot shows up after us. we figure out where we're parking. And then slowly all of our friends and our guests start to filter in. And it literally was one of the best days from start to finish that I've had at a tailgate since we started tailgating in Doc's lot. Like, first of all, I want to crack a fresh beer. You're right. We've only been doing this for 4 minutes. I'm already on beer 2. I want to say thank you to everybody who made it out to the tailgate, because you got to be a part of something, like I said, maybe my favorite day since we started doing this in this parking lot. It was just, and I think one of the things that made it special was seeing how, like, we always talk about this thing as a family, like it's a familial thing, whether you're related or you feel like family. That's what my tailgate is to me. It's special. Like, there's at least a couple times every tailgate weekend where I find myself just kind of sitting back, and is rare for me, just sitting back quietly, not talking to anybody, just taking it in, watching all the people I know from various pockets of the world who know nothing about each other. Some of them might have traveled internationally, some of them from out of state, all congregating and conversating and finding common ground and enjoying the day. And it's like knowing that Iman and I and Chris and like the work we put into putting on the tailgate produces this place where everyone can get together and mingle and just have this day. And the weather was perfect for it. I don't know. It made me misty-eyed, Chris. I missed the mud lot, but this Sunday was damn close to some of the best days we ever had in that place. So thank you to everybody who showed up.
What I liked was across the lot, because we were in the back corner. We're probably where we should be because, well, mainly because of you. You're ugly. Keep things in the back. But I saw Joe and Jeremy. Joe owns, I think it's Panioteca in
Panioteca.
Rochester. I saw him across the lot. He tapped a cocktail shaker and started shaking. And then I just
you flexed up.
I just
you got defensive as cocktail guy.
I'm like, no. Who's on my turf?
Who's making cocktails in my?
You are on my turf. So I went over there.
It would have been funnier if you had all those chains on when you did it.
It would. It would. But we connected. We swapped cocktails and certain recipes and how we do things, and then I ended up making a reservation at his restaurant because my wife and I are going to Rochester for comedy on the 9th.
Guys, like, this is what it is. You meet people, you build relationships and friendships in this place, and it's crazy to get to step back and know that, like, I love Nick. Nick travels in from New Jersey with his wife and kids to come see the game and tailgate with us.
Yeah, him and his daughters. I talked to his daughters about the crisis at the border.
I know that Jake from out of state, I know he's bringing his family from Albany, and they're going to bring kids and they're going to hang out. And watching Nick's daughter play with Jake's relatives, kids, and it's like, this is what it's all about right here. Like I said, I got misty-eyed watching this whole thing play out, watching all the foot traffic and watching all the people who showed up just to grab a bite to eat and say hi. Thank you, because you gave me one of the best days I've had in Ralph Wilson Stadium since the day it was built. So to kind of skew this back towards the football game, I was having such a good time with the game that I just didn't want the tailgate to end. I was in no hurry to get into the stadium. Chris, you left and I was still making food.
Yeah, I left to go in, and you had the privilege of tearing everything down and loading everything up. You missed most of the first quarter, so you didn't get to see the horseshit that I got to see. Because I mean,
guys,
we all know I'm not football guy, but I was not okay with the fact that they were not running the ball to start the game.
Sure,
they came out throwing.
Okay.
And I hated it.
Okay, you hated it. So let's talk about this, guys. I want to paint a picture for you. I pack up the tailgate, and it's me and Eric. Me and Eric, cigar, we've got beers. I'm walking, drinking, we're having conversation. We take a shot after we pack everything up, and we casually walk down. The game has already started. Neither one of us really care. We're moseying our way down to the stadium because this is just such a nice day. I want to enjoy it. I want to soak it up while I can. And I get into the stadium, and it's just at the end of the first quarter. And I sit down, and I'm not even seated for what, Chris? 10, maybe less than 10 minutes. And I hear people just screaming profanity, people cussing about Josh Allen, people screaming about how our offensive coordinator's a moron. And I do the look around. I'm like, wait, what the hell did I miss? What's going on? Guys, it's okay. We're losing by a little. Okay. We're losing by a little. It's not that bad. I think at the time, Chris, what was it? 3-0?
Something like that.
I think it would have been 3-0 at that point. So then we fast forward. I pull out my phone and I start looking at Twitter, as we get closer and closer to halftime. And Twitter has this gorgeous thing that it does where it brings you everybody you follow's old tweets kind of first. They want to catch you up on all the things you might have missed. And what I see are some people who we know and some people who I respect with some of the most hyperbolic takes about the Buffalo Bills that I've seen. That stuff, Chris, stuff that like it pains me to even consider. Here's one that I didn't send you. Fire McDermott, bring back Dable. That was a real thing. Someone tweeted in the first quarter of this Sunday's game.
I can get behind that.
Someone tweeted out, McDermott has lost this team. But then there's others. Like, Chris, let's start here. This one from Patrick Moran from Talking Buffalo. And Pat, I love Pat. I'll kiss Pat on the mouth if he was sitting right here next to me. He says, a clown job of McDermott having his team ready to play at home. Clown job of Brady's play calling. Lousy job of Josh on some throws. Clown job of wide receivers separating. Clown job mostly with this soft Babbage defense. And quite frankly, the Bills are very lucky to only be down by 3 at the half. Wow. That's a mouthful. That's a real aggressive stance to take about what I thought I was seeing in a football game. Chris, also, what about this from Alex Brasky? The Bills' offense looks as bad today as it ever did under Ken Dorsey. That's a thing. That's a thing a person with a check mark said. And then you go on down the list, right? Bradley Gelber. Everybody knows Bradley Gelber. He's a nice guy. The 31st ranked offense in the NFL scores before the Buffalo Bills. Like detritus, right? And somebody responded, a guy whose handle is named Process McClapperton. So, Chris, you can tell he's a McDermott fan.
Yes.
It says, in fairness, isn't the Bills offense ranking only a couple spots higher? Sir, the Bills are the 5th ranked offense in the NFL. Watch your mouth. Hey, watch your mouth. It goes on, right? Uber Hansen, a guy who I'd love to get hammered with. In fact, I was drinking with him at the Bills, at the Cover One house that they got for training camp. They rent an Airbnb and all of Cover One goes there. I showed up, and while Greg and Aaron were left me unsupervised with their underlings, and yes, I feel comfortable saying that, I managed to convince a bunch of them that it was a good idea that we start other Cover One shows and just like Cover One F1 racing. And it's really just a ruse for us getting hammered on camera. Chris, I've had conversations with this guy. He tweets out angrily, the Bills' third down defense feels like it's about as bad as it could be. And if you think I'm making it up, Chris, throw it there on the screen for people.
Yeah, they've seen all of these. I'm doing it as you talk. That's how production works, you dumbass.
So then here's the best one. As we're going into halftime, Mike Shope at 2:21 p.m. decides to tweet out, McDermott and Allen on the sideline there won't even look at each other. And that's where I get my hackles up. First of all, and it's hilarious because I'm looking at it right now, Greg Thompson responded, any update if they looked at each other in the second half? How hyperbolic. Like, guys, I'm supposed to be the lunatic here. I'm supposed to be the one who drinks too much, takes to Twitter, and says some wild, asinine shit that's completely overreactionary because I'm a prisoner of the moment. Usually because of alcohol. It's not supposed to be the guys who have afternoon drive on the fucking radio. It's not supposed to be the guys who have these massive platforms and tens and thousands of followers. You're not supposed to be me. You're supposed to be better than me. Chris, it's that thing, it's that dynamic, right? Of if you have an opinion, sometimes it helps to take a look around and see who else shares your opinion, and it may help you decide whether or not you're on the right side of something.
Yeah.
This first half set some people who we follow on social media and who I happen to think are relatively intelligent, it set their brains on fire. And it's wild because the entire time, I don't know if it was because I missed that first quarter, maybe I just wasn't subjected to it, but I felt numb to it. I was in a good mood. You can probably recall that.
Yeah, we had a similar start against Tennessee as we did against Arizona. Just slow, and then we just boat raced them in the second half. I don't know why we can't have a complete game of this.
But do you need a complete game? And we're going to talk about that. You hit the nail on the head right there. A complete game of that. Do you know what you're asking for? Look at this. Okay. Let's talk about what NFL football is. I feel like after having watched some of the Cover One videos and some of the stuff that they tell people and some of the statistics they have, some of you people think that like you can math your way to a perfect football team and it's all just analytics. Do you understand that football is incredibly difficult and that there is a lot of luck involved. There's a lot of orchestration involved. This is going to be, guys, a theme for the show for the evening. This concept that Chris just stumbled into because he's a rube, but I love him. This concept of, can we just get 4 full quarters of this? First of all, I want to deconstruct all of the whining that took place about the Bills' first half. Let's break it down. Rewatching the game. If Keon Coleman catches the second drive pass on third down, he's wide open. Now he's down the field. We're almost in their red zone and nobody's crying about our offensive coordinator. There's no detritus if Keon Coleman catches the first ball that's thrown at him that day. It was an off-target throw by Allen while he was on the run being chased because our offensive line was under siege. But Coleman won his route. It was the right play call. Quarterback threw a mediocre ball. Wide receiver didn't catch it. One play can completely skew what you prisoners of the moment, think about the job that our coordinator's doing. Later in the game, against the same cornerback, Allen hits Coleman for a 44-yard pass, and everyone's doing this. Woo! You do know that it would have been the same thing if it wasn't for just a little, and you're going to make this a Joe Brady problem? No, it sounds like Joe Brady called up the right thing. It just didn't land. And that's okay because that's the game of football. Attacking the preparation. Those of you who are like, oh, good job, McDermott, getting the team ready. I want to walk you through what happened to the Buffalo Bills this weekend. It wasn't until after final walkthroughs were already done for the week that the Tennessee Titans announced that we're going to bench Will Levis.
Due to injury, not mayonnaise.
I'd bench him for the mayonnaise. I'm not going to lie to you. If I had a guy, if I was a football coach and I had a guy on my team who was sponsored by a mayonnaise, you can't play for me. We can't have that here. But it wasn't until walkthroughs were finished, right, that they announced that Mason Rudolph was going to be the starter. Not for nothing, the same Mason Rudolph who helped quarterback the Pittsburgh Steelers to a wild card appearance against the Buffalo Bills last year. So all of a sudden, everything that you've been planning for based on the tape you have available gets not thrown out the window, but kind of has to be reimagined because, or at least the game plan I drew up and already installed, it's probably not going to be worth a whole lot. We're going to have to learn on the fly. And that's what the first half was. And I don't know why so many of you are shocked by this, right? Levis's arm strength, but questionable accuracy and has an underdeveloped understanding of how to play a zone. Rudolph doesn't have a cannon for an arm. It's why he was drafted in the 3rd round. But
he's got his fingers are pretty good sliding into people's DMs. He's got pretty good finger strength. The only slide into DMs.
That's funny because I forget about the Mason Rudolph DM sliding, the whole thing.
Yeah, that happened like 2 weeks ago against the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Slid into some girl's DMs.
Some girl, he hit on some Dolphins fans' girl.
Yeah.
Randomly on social media, and the guy made a video in the middle of them getting blown out by the Titans, being like, my life sucks because not only am I losing to this guy, but he's hitting on my girlfriend. So I digress. Everyone knows that the offense changes when you bring in a veteran quarterback who has an understanding of this, and you have to realize the Titans game plan that you planned for is gone. They're going to be something completely different, and now you have to pivot. Good luck. So now all of a sudden, we're a different animal. All the timing routes that the Titans haven't been able to execute all season long because Will Levis doesn't have a feel for that, were all of a sudden there, and they were firing on all cylinders in the first half. If they weren't better at it, we would have been down by a lot more. Also, they used a lot of them to tertiary targets that to this point in the season haven't played a role at all for the Tennessee Titans. Look at this. Chris, you know who the leading receivers were in the first half for the Tennessee Titans?
No.
Westbrook-Ikhine, Tyler Boyd, Nick Vannett, and Josh White. Just like we drew it up, right? Those are the guys you game plan for, right, Chris?
Yeah. Vita Vega, bad week for mayonnaise. Will Levis benched, and Gerard Mayo calling his team soft.
That's actually really funny. I like how Bill Belichick kind of stepped in and was just like, well, I feel bad for those guys because, a year ago they were the best run defense in football. But yeah, they're soft. Doesn't that feel like a shot at his replacement? Mm-hmm. I love it. I'm here for all the Belichick on Patriots crime that's about to occur over the next year or two. But anyways, back to the topic at hand, the Tennessee Titans. I want to point this out to you guys. 6 of their 11, like the first 11 passes, were completions to tight ends for the Tennessee Titans. This is a team without a tight end of note, right? Callahan for Tennessee did a really good job scheming the early script, knowing Buffalo would have no tape on it. They went through the tight end, something they haven't done all year. How are the Buffalo Bills supposed to be prepared for this on defense if you're going to roll out an attack nobody's ever seen with a quarterback who's only played one game? And so in this way, all of the screaming that went on about how, whoa, good job preparing, McDermott. The fuck do you want him to do? What do you want from him? So what he and Babbage did was they hung out and they waited and they watched. Well, through that first half, they did what you should do if you're attacking the Buffalo Bills. You use the threat of your running game to pull their linebackers. And then you use timing routes and shallow crossers off play action where the play action's just enough to hold to Dorian Williams. Or nobody's covering Nick Vannett because who the fuck is Nick Vannett? And then you complete a pass to him. And Dorian Williams and Taylor Rapp were pretty much the victims of this. If you go back and watch the tape, those were the two guys who were victimized most often by the things the Tennessee Titans installed into their game plan. And the Bills had no tape. They have no way to prepare for this. So they have to sit back and just react in real time. You have to expect that under the circumstances, the Bills' defense was going to let them move the ball a little bit. But you would have thought, based on the reactions, this defense gave up 21 points in the first half, Chris.
Yeah.
In the second half, how many of those same people were crying in their beer?
No, we were all happy.
Everyone was happy, right? So say it with me, Chris. A goose fraba. I mean, if there's anything else, like if I can attack anything, right? Like we've already talked about the offensive play calling. We've already talked about the defensive play calling. I mean, I've got a fair criticism. The only thing left to attack is probably the officials. I did tweet out at halftime, or maybe it was in the third quarter, Chris, after that like weird roughing penalty that wasn't. And they still gave us 15 yards for unnecessary roughness. And I tweeted out that I hope the officials in this game are attacked by dogs in a public parking lot and no one calls the police. That's about as hostile as I got on social media. And I think that after everything that took place in the first half and how many people with huge platforms and big followings were literally just wallowing in their feelings and prisoners of the moment, it was weird being like, is that what I look like? Is this what happens to me? I just go out here and say crazy, wild shit. I throw detritus around and I criticize our coaching staff unfairly because I'm a prisoner of the moment. Let's divorce ourselves from this, can we? I'm going to talk about more of that in a minute. There are some fair criticisms of the Buffalo Bills. Their interior offensive line was not up to snuff this week. Spencer Brown was the only offensive lineman who graded positively. And I think that showed up in the rushing stats and just the lack of ability to use our offensive line to sustain drives and run the ball. I mean, 2 running backs caught touchdown passes. So that counts for running back production. But everything else that they did, like there wasn't a single Bills running back who did anything on the ground to change the course of this game. And I don't blame them, right? I blame the fact that Cook saw heavy boxes on like 8% of his snaps and still couldn't find running lanes. That's a problem. You guys just didn't execute. and I mean, them's the breaks. You look at the numbers, he did more east and west rushing than he did north and south. All of our running backs did. Pollard faced no heavy boxes for the Tennessee Titans and only got 61 yards. The interior offensive line performances for both teams was abysmal. It was terrible. Also, play calling, right? Like so maybe we did play to the strengths of our defenders and all these people who are mad at Joe Brady saying he's Ken Dorsey. It's admittedly a mistake, and we're lucky we got away with that one. But at the same time, what do you want him to do? He tried to trust our interior line because you have to challenge him. Now, I will say this, and I hope that this is a game Joe Brady will learn from, where he goes, wait a minute, I tried to run the offense through the ground game early and just kept banging my head off the wall. When I was, you want to talk about imposing your will, because that's football. I mean, the game of football, realistically, Chris, is, I think Ryan Lasel said it. He goes, it's acquisition of property through violence. You take yards, you take the end zone from another team through physicality and violence. And that's football. And we cheer for them because they're gladiators and we love to see this. So what I'll say is this: you can try to impose your will sometimes and there's nothing you can do. Case in point, I was a freshman in college. I went to it was probably like my 3rd or 4th meeting at the college newspaper that I decided to work at. And the editor was another college freshman who had done, God bless him, Steve Jensen, he's passed. I feel like I can tell the story. He had done a 10-year bid. So he was starting college as a 30-year-old man. Steve Jensen was also 6'4", probably about 310 pounds. He was an animal. And I remember sitting in a meeting with Steve Jensen where he was dictating things to me. And I was like, you're not going to boss me around. Like, oh, you're the editor. So I said something to him and he goes, he looked at me, Chris, and gave me one of those things of, did you talk? Like I mouthed off to him. I can't remember what I said. And I go, you heard me, Cupcake. And then I blew a kiss at him. And he just stood up and very calmly pushed his chair and was like, all right, well, now we have to go outside. And so me being cocky was like, all right, tough guy. I'll impose my will on this guy. I'll fight you, Steve Jensen. And we went outside the Chimes lab. The Morrisville Chimes was the newspaper. And I'm outside. Well, there's 40 kids inside with their eyes all pressed to the windows, just watching me and this behemoth square up. And I still had it in my head that I was going to impose my will on this guy. He's not going to boss me around. I played football. I'm tough. Chris, I bum rushed him, and I thought I could tackle him off his feet. Do you know he didn't move an inch? Like, when I hit him, it was like I had run into one of those concrete pillars outside of like a dorm building. He didn't move. And then all he did was put me in a headlock, and my zipper, I'll never forget it, my zipper cut my lip open. That's how hard he headlocked me. And he sat there for a second, and I flailed. And eventually he stops and goes, are you going to fight back? And I'm like, I am fighting back. And he laughed. He goes, I'm really sorry about this. And then grabbed me and just threw me into the shrubs like I was a rag doll. And then he went inside. Now 40 kids just watched me get my ass handed to me. And I picked myself up, walked back in. I'm bleeding out of the lip. I sit down at my computer and I go right back to work like nothing happened. Because I tried to impose my will where it was impossible to make it happen. I was ridiculous for ever thinking that was going to work. You have to learn when it's time to like cut your losses. This is what Joe Brady did on Sunday. And for all the people who are mad at him for this idea of, oh man, our early game play calling was terrible. He tried to do the thing where he didn't want to expose, because their secondary is very well regarded, even without L'Jarius Sneed. He wanted to try to lean on a thing that has sustained this football team for weeks, which is the rushing attack. When we do well, it's because our running backs are carrying momentum. He tried to lean on it, and it just did not work. They got Steve Jensen. That rushing game got packed up, put in a headlock, and then thrown into some shrubs outside of a building while all of us, not 40, but 80,000 people sat there and watched. And he learned from it the same way I learned. He learned from it. And that pivot saved the game for us. Because if you want to talk about the positives that come out of this game, the first one has to be halftime adjustments. It has to be. Chris, the idea that you can malign Joe Brady for a million things and say that he didn't do a good job having a game plan heading into things. It started in the second quarter. Big kick return. Second week in a row that a kick return has sparked our offense. Chris, that Codrington trade that seemed like a throwaway, right now it seems pretty huge, doesn't it?
It's working.
You have a kick return, a 45-yard pass, and an 11-yard run, and now the deficit's only 3 points in your football game, and you're just into the third quarter. or no, that was in the second quarter. Then you get into the third quarter, and for Babbitt, they're just some numbers, right? Like halftime adjustments for him, it was just the way they really leaned into the downfield passing attack. They said, fine, fuck it. If they're really going to hem us up at the line of scrimmage and they're going to try to take away all the short stuff, we will open up these plays of it's going to be Kincaid on deep routes. It's going to be Coleman 20, 25, 30 yards downfield, turning around looking for the ball or in breaking routes. They decided to finally just abandon the run and go full pass, and found out pretty quickly that secondary was not equipped to handle what Josh Allen can do when he's accurate and he's on point. And, well, I've got something about Josh Allen's accuracy, but if you also want to look at the defense, look at the way we ran away with it. For Babbage, there are some numbers that really pass the eye test. In the first half, right? Like for the game, Tennessee, 6 of 16 on third down. All 6 of those conversions came in the first half. When the Bills were facing an offensive game plan they have no tape for, And there's no time to install. There's no time to coach. The Titans skunked you. They hooked you. And now they have a game plan that's wildly different than anything you could have prepared for. So you have to learn on the fly. It took them a half to do it. So they come out in the second half, right? And Chris, one of those, and it's worth noting, one of those first downs is the play that set up the Hail Mary attempt. So that's kind of a throwaway.
Yeah.
We gave it to them. So 5 in the first half that I'm willing to acknowledge. And then in the second half, we gave them nothing. They had no quarter from our defense. Not a single non-penalty induced first down. Or at least first down on third down. Babbage really helped kind of lay the foundation for that early. Because you know what you saw was we got aggressive. We started really attacking them with the pass rush. And you started to see the sacks and the quarterback hits pile up, forced fumbles. It was a commitment to a thing of, okay, we saw your best shot. Now we've dissected it. Do you have anything else? Because the other thing, Chris, that I think unintentionally showed us, the Titans did in that first half, they showed us that Mason Rudolph cannot connect the deep pass. He's got to throw with his entire body. He doesn't have natural arm strength. So those deep passes where it's like, oh, Benford got cooked by Ridley and Mason Rudolph just missed him. Yeah, of course he missed him. He's a terrible quarterback when it comes to throwing the 9 route or a deep post or even a deep crosser. He doesn't have the arm strength. And as soon as Babbage figured that out, he crafted a defense at halftime and they came out with a new approach and just ate him alive. It was embarrassing. And so when you think about that decision making in the moment, Babbage making better choices on the fly, showing you, hey, this offense seemed like they were better than us in the first half. Well, not only did my counterpart on offense, Joe Brady, figure out how to move the football against this Tennessee defense that everyone likes to praise, not only did we figure out how to just pants them in front of 80,000 people and maybe half the country, also, I'm going to pressure this no arm having quarterback. I'm going to put pressure on him. I want guys in his lap. I want A-gap pressure. I want pressure off the edge. I'm going to blitz. I'm going to blitz DBs. I'm going to bring everything, and this guy is going to struggle. And what happened? It all fell apart. The Tennessee Titans shit the bed in front of everyone, and I think there was no more telling play for that right there. Remember when I said last week that this was going to be a battle of middling coaches in terms of in-game decision-making?
Yeah.
McDermott and his coaching staff pressed all the right buttons this week when it came to making choices on the fly. You know who made one of the most egregious mistakes? Was Callahan. Just like he's been derided for doing for most of the season by Titans fans.
So that challenge?
That 4th and 2 play. It's not 4th and 1, it's 4th and 2. It's not like you have a mobile quarterback. It's not like you have some juggernaut running back. You don't have a Derrick Henry. It's not like your offensive line has given you any reason to believe that on the interior they can defend well enough to run block so that you can get 2 yards. Chris, it's in the third quarter. All you had to do was punt the ball away and live to fight another day. And instead, Callahan trusted, apropos of nothing, that his rushing attack on and then you saw how not just a handoff to the running back could get 2+ yards on 4th down, but also that you could have the mesh point between the quarterback and the running back be so far behind the line of scrimmage. That's not only a bad spot to go for it on 4th and 2, it's the absolute worst play call at the worst moment. And you watch Dwayne Carter just discard everybody around him and swarm into the backfield, and they just swallow up the running back for a loss. And it keys another Bills scoring drive, and that's us running away with the football game. If you want to try to, like, and then there was one other thing. So Babbage. So we've got Brady, learned on the fly, showed you that he has a pivot in the moment. Good decision maker. You've got Babbage, who's showing you that you can approach him with a brand new thing he's never seen before, and that on the fly, in the moment, he's capable of dissecting it, breaking it down, coming up with a pivot. Okay? You zig, I'll zig with you eventually. You zig when I zag, fine. I'll meet up with you later down the road. It's incredible what they were capable of doing. And so our coordinators, the Killer Bees, deserve a lot of credit for this, because this is a game that absolutely could have come off the rails if no one on our coaching staff was willing to come off their original idea, their original plan, and wasn't able to very quickly break down what the other team was doing well, what they were doing poorly, and capitalize on it.
I like to picture at halftime, Joe Brady came down from the booth into the locker room, and Babbage and Brady spent all of halftime picking out what new gold chains they want to wear for the second half, because they're about to fuck shit up.
They were like, listen, we need to swap our chains. That's the problem. It's not our play calling. It's the juju. The juju in the room is the problem. And then I just want to point one thing out. Last week, there was a mountain of vitriol dropped on Sean McDermott's doorstep, myself included, over the Hail Mary decision. And I feel like that I think you should leave show. And rightfully so. So I think it's worth noting. Last week, Sean McDermott made a mistake on a Hail Mary play that opened the door to a Jets comeback. For the second week in a row going into halftime, we found ourselves in a Hail Mary situation. And you hear Sean McDermott, and I know it's easy to clap and point and make fun and be like, oh, he says, oh, we're going to learn from that. Myself included. I said these things. I'm guilty. This time, and I saw it, Chris, when we were in the stands, because remember, the Hail Mary was coming towards our end zone.
Yeah.
And I look down and I go, is that Mac fucking Hollins? Is that Mac Hollins on the field? Sure enough, Mac Hollins, one defensive snap. He's out there right in the middle of the goal line, just waiting.
I would have put it in Dawson Knox because he can't catch.
You're banking on the fact that his hands are so coated in Teflon that he can get up there and knock that thing down inadvertently.
Yeah.
It's proof positive. And I'll tell you what, Callahan did the right thing, like the play, or at least the decision by Rudolph. It's that thing of, okay, I'm going to throw it short of the end zone. Now, first of all, I don't think Mason Rudolph has the arm to get it there. But he threw it short, and the logic is sound. They're going to put wide receivers in here. They're going to make them tackle. Let's see if the Bills can actually tackle if they're going to put wide receivers on the field against us. Oh, by the way, that receiver is also our punt gunner. There's nobody I trust more to tackle in the open field like that guy. So in that way, you have to walk away from it going, maybe Sean McDermott's not full of shit about this whole, we're going to learn from that. Maybe we just need to have a little more patience. And this is sounding crazy coming from me. I'm the guy pounding the table for patience now. What the hell is going on around here? I also want to point out that our pass catching room really showed us something this weekend. You're talking about a defense that, for better or worse, obviously you can only play the people on your schedule. So all the people who go, well, they're only ranked number one defense in the NFL because of who they played. Those are the only teams they could have played, and they're number one. They're not 4, they're not 7, they're 1. The wide receiver room has taken its fair share of detritus, some flack. This game, they really showed off a lot of things. Like the guy who had the quietest game out of all of them, I want to start with him, Khalil Shakir. Khalil Shakir didn't have a giant game, but what he did with his limited catches was incredible to see, because he gets the one catch and he just runs across and sets us up for 3rd and inches.
He was 7 catches on 7 targets.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And then, what were his yards?
Say 65 yards.
Yeah, so 7 catches, but only 65 yards. He literally, see exactly, Joe Miller. It's Sean McDermott's fault they had an easy first 3 games. It's like, guys, what do you want? Dude, we're all just playing the schedule we're handed. But what I got to see is Khalil Shakir catch all of his passes. Do you guys know that he has a 97% catch rate? It's the highest in the NFL right now. It's wild how productive and how reliable he is. And he's not a household name. When that guy's up for an extension, it hopefully won't cost much because he hasn't scored a bunch of touchdowns. But Chris, you'd be willing to break the bank for a guy like that, right?
Yeah.
Then you look at Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper was that, obviously, we all celebrated it last week. We all talked about it on our various podcasts, our social media platforms. Everybody's excited to have him. And then the first ball hits him in the hands and bounces off. And all of the fucking boo birds on social media, you hyperbolic assholes. Again, I'm the bad guy. I'm the one who's supposed to get drunk and overreact. How dare you all steal my bit? All of these people screaming about how that first drop, and they're already got their thumbs out. Blah, 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 blah. He stinks. This was a bad trade. Tell me that Amari Cooper's touchdown catch after that drop, like, that silences everyone, doesn't it, Chris?
I mean, considering I was watching that play, it happened in our end zone, and I turn to you and I go, I don't think he knows what the play call is.
You did say it before.
He threw his hands up like this while looking at Keon Coleman, which is a clear body language like that he doesn't know what's happening. I was like, all right, this guy doesn't know the play call, and then it's a fucking touchdown to Cooper.
So here's what I love. There are moments where I get to sit next to Chris in the stadium and he'll look at me and say something football related, and I feel so proud to be like, he's learning. The boy's learning. I love it. Like, I feel like I'm getting to watch you grow up as a football fan. And he'll have observations like that where he goes, I'm looking at the communication between him and Coleman, and it almost seems like he's lost. But then there was also a play in the game where I think we had Kincaid in the backfield, and then Chris, wasn't it like a fake handoff, and then they tried to hit him on like a swing, and it just got smelled out by the defense immediately?
Probably.
And Chris turns to me and goes, that was a Make-A-Wish play. I go, what do you mean? He goes, that play couldn't have been designed by anyone with any NFL acumen. It must have been a Make-A-Wish kid who called that one in. He's like, I expect to see a kid on the sideline with a headset on. That play didn't come from a real NFL offensive mind. And it makes me laugh knowing that Chris can see that and like pick up on these things now after all these years of watching football together. Amari Cooper's addition to this team, for me, if I can say this, Chris, I'm not even, it wasn't the touchdown pass that really did it for me. For me, it was earlier in the game when he catches this back shoulder to the sideline, gets 2 toes down as he's going out, and still has the wherewithal, sans any real time on task with our quarterback, to know where the ball is, turn around, secure it, and make sure you get both feet in before you go out of bounds for a first down. It's that play right there that day one on the job you can just make because you're so talented. And that's the thing that's been missing. Yeah, everyone keeps talking about how Keon Coleman needs seasoning. And trust me, he's progressing. You're watching it happen. But Amari Cooper already has it. He has it. The thing that makes a wide receiver special in the NFL. The ability to acclimate to a throw in the air, to a play that he doesn't quite understand, but just has a feeling for coverage. He has it in a global sense, and there's nothing, right? There's nothing you can do to take that away from him if you're a defense. And God help you if he does get into the playbook and really starts to understand it and builds that rapport with Allen. Because I feel like that alone, even if he's not taking the roof off defenses, we don't need him for that. We have Keon. Keon's a decade younger than him. Let him run. It's that you have a guy now who can do the Cole Beasley thing. You know, everyone kept saying, oh, you're going to get him because you need a Stephon Diggs. No. What we needed was the Cole Beasley thing. Even when we still had Stephon Diggs, we always needed the Cole Beasley safety blanket. In this game, Amari Cooper showed me more moments of being able to make himself available without even really knowing the play. That's your safety blanket. And when he does get acclimated, God help everybody. Chris, God help everybody if he does get acclimated with Allen and get into this playbook, because he is Swole Beasley. And then what happens? when your quarterback safety blanket is a former all-pro wide receiver who's still at the tail end of his prime, a lot of crazy shit can happen. Keon Coleman. Do you guys know, Chris, if I said this to you, it'll probably shock you. Where do you think Keon Coleman ended up this week in terms of NFL wide receivers for yardage?
In the top 5.
Number 1. Keon Coleman, as a rookie in his 8th football game, led the NFL led all NFL wide receivers in yardage for the week. Now, when you think about what that means for the Buffalo Bills, could be nothing, could be an aberration. But you start to watch games and you go, he has a great play here. He has a great play there. He makes a big play downfield. And when you look at the 2 plays he almost made, the one that he dropped in the first quarter, and then the one that he made later, and I believe it was the third quarter, Coleman has a very good understanding already at this point in time of zone defense. Now, man defense, the knock on him coming out of college is that he would struggle with it. He has, but that's okay. There's plenty of upside here. There's still plenty of time for him to learn. And even if he doesn't learn, then you just pivot and put him in position. He was not drafted to be your Z wide receiver. He was drafted to be an X. An X wide receiver doesn't have to be able to win every single route. You don't need, like, the whole wide receiver 1 conversation. I don't need a wide receiver 1. I need a bunch of 2s. That's how Green Bay is doing it. I need a whole bunch of 2s. The skill set Keon Coleman had coming into the NFL was that of an X receiver, and he's doing it. Or no, wait, did I screw that up? X and Z. See, Chris?
X gonna give it to you.
X gonna give it to you. They needed a secondary threat at wide receiver. It's beer. It's beer, and it's the night that we spent out at 9/11,
yes,
stuffing chicken wings and beers down our gullet with Greg Thompson from Cover One and Aaron Quinn and Del Reed. What a fun night. What a random fun night on a podcast night.
Joe Miller wasn't happy that he didn't get invited.
Steve Noble, a slow X. The Bills wanted yards after the catch and they got it in Coleman. Yeah, you've got a guy now who has the ability to stretch the field. And even though he's not going to sprint away from anybody, that's okay because he can catch and he can make plays down the field against zone. Good. You give me the too high shell look. I now have a guy who I can use as a weapon against that. And hopefully, just like Gabe Davis, the upshot is that by the time we have to pay him, he's playing at a level that warrants that salary. And if not, we divest. And it doesn't matter because it didn't cost us. For everybody who's mad about Gabe Davis about Keon Coleman, or who thinks Keon Coleman should be giving you more, look at what Gabe Davis has done. Keon Coleman is statistically superior to Gabe Davis right now in 2024. The year of my Lord 2024, Gabe Davis is not as good production-wise as Keon Coleman. What are you going to say about that? That it was a mistake to divest and to go out into a rookie pool and draft a guy with a similar skill set? Absolutely not. And I would recommend that if Keon Coleman hasn't improved by the time his contract's due, you do it again. Because you have that luxury as a team that has this guy at quarterback. Keon Coleman is already outplaying where we prognosticated him to be the day of the draft. He's already showing you flashes of greatness beyond what we've had from Gabe Davis over the last few years. I think he's a more willing run blocker. And that's worth noting because Gabe Davis wasn't soft. Gabe Davis was a good run blocking wide receiver, but Keon Coleman is a little more aggressive. He knows how to use his size to his advantage better. And maybe a new offensive coordinator is one of the things helping drive Keon Coleman to producing more than Gabe Davis did. But it's funny that right now Gabe Davis is making what, Chris? I think his contract was $84 million. If you want to give that a goog for me. And we have a rookie who's doing pretty much the same thing Gabe Davis was doing last year. He's had his mistakes because he's a rookie. What are we working with here? What do we got there? 3 years, 39 million. That's it? That's all he got? I thought it was more than that.
No.
Wow, I thought he got paid. Still more than I would have given him. So, with that in mind, I have to ask a question, Chris. Did we win the Xavier Worthy trade? I'm sorry. For anybody out there, are we currently winning after all the screaming that happened draft weekend? Are we winning the Xavier Worthy trade? Because Dwayne Carter looked like during this game. Dwayne Carter played man-sized football this weekend. And Keon Coleman led all NFL wide receivers in yardage. And where was Xavier Worthy? I'm sorry, I didn't catch him getting any buzz. I don't hear anything about him having an overwhelmingly positive impact on his team's offense, which happens to be struggling at the moment. Chris, I'm sorry, am I crazy, or did the Buffalo Bills win that trade?
Here you go.
What?
On the phone. Xavier Worthy, 1 rush, 5 yards. Xavier Worthy receiving, 8 targets, 3 catches, 19 yards on Sunday. There you go.
Guys, it's awesome. It's awesome to see that kind of production. You know, Dalton Kincaid, amazing catch that sometimes they'd rule a touchdown. Sometimes they'd call it a fumble out of the end zone. There's no way to anticipate the NFL. But the pass catchers on this team are growing right in front of our eyes. We're getting to see the growth of a pass catching unit, and it's crazy because we came in with all of these question marks. And you say, hey, this defense is really stout. We're gonna have a hard time if our running backs can't carry the load. And you watched the second half of football where the team said, screw it, we're taking the gloves off. We're going to steer into what we do well, roll the dice. And all of a sudden, we're blowing a team off the field with unheralded, underpaid receiving targets and a star quarterback. I think that everybody who trashed Brady owes him an apology. I think everybody who owes Babbage, and, as much as I hate to say this, Sean McDermott, I think everybody is on this coaching staff is owed an apology because they found a way. And when they pivot and they steer into their strengths, this team is still capable of making bad football teams look terrible. And that's all you can do, right? You play what's on your schedule. Everyone who's like, oh, well, the Bills haven't beaten anybody. It's who's on your schedule. So you can't just beat them, though. If you're the Buffalo Bills, the reason you're the 5th ranked offense in the NFL today is because you've crushed them. You've rolled over the top of the worst of your opponents, including one of them who plays in your own division. But you do that all the time anyway. I mean, fuck Miami. Chris, hero and zero of the week. My hero of the week has to be Keon Coleman.
Don't take it personally, all right? Franchise star players are a lot like Highlanders. There can only be one.
I hated the draft pick. I'm on record. I'm literally on record. There's audio. Here in this studio, we did the hashtag sports draft show, and I flipped out because they asked before the second round even started. They said, okay, what do you want to see out of the Bills? What's your best case, worst case scenario? And I said, my worst case scenario is Keon Coleman because he's a guy who can't separate. He doesn't have deep speed. He runs unclean routes. He's just not what you want. And we already passed on all the speed guys. So why would you take the least athletic guy? And of course they draft Keon Coleman. And I'm apoplectic. And like most of my draft takes, I'm made to look like a horse's ass at this point because he's been wildly productive and he is a fit, not just in terms of the offense, not just in terms of the scheme, the quarterback. Culturally, you can tell this kid fits. You want to know why he does that thing? We were talking about it with Greg tonight at dinner. So we're sitting at dinner tonight with Greg Thompson from Cover One. And we're talking about the fact that for as much of an idiot as I am and as many manic traits as I have, I'm very self-aware of them. And Greg goes, you also ham it up a little bit. He goes, you camouflage yourself. He goes, everyone thinks you're a big dumb animal and you're way smarter than that, which is why I get mad. He goes, I get legitimately mad at you when you come at me with something stupid because I know you're smarter than that. Keon Coleman's the same way. He's developed this persona of, oh, shucks, man, I'm going to go out here and do this real hilarious interview. I'm just this, whatever. Then you watch his football intelligence and you go, you know what? He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. And he's also this quietly aggressive. He's never going to be the DK Metcalf shoving guys around after a play. He's not doing any of this stuff. But when you see him in phase and the way he makes contact with defensive players, Chris, there's bad intentions. There's bad intentions behind that. I love it. And again, if you're leading the NFL for a week in pass catches, like in passing yards, you become the hero of the week by default, I think. You do. You won the whole wide receiving for the week, Keon Coleman. The loser of the game, Chris. I had a hard time coming up with one. Like I was really trying to think about somebody who made an egregious mistake. Someone who sucked, someone who dropped the ball, someone that we could punch down on. What do you think?
Oh, you don't even have one?
No, I don't even have one.
I would just go you.
I was going to say.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do it like this. You're zero, or what camera? You're zero. You're zero. Yeah.
Where's my single?
Your zero of the week is Drew Gear.
You look like death warmed over. Every time I look at you, I lose my fucking appetite.
That's just because you missed the first quarter.
You're right. On a day like that, when it's a gorgeous day and a good football game, if you miss a whole quarter of football because you're too busy taking shots, you're kind of the asshole.
Hey, were you pounding the table for Cody Ford?
I'm not going to lie, I was. It's funny how all the things that I think about the NFL draft turn out to suck. Guys, I want to end the show with a talk about expectations because I feel like at the top of the show, I gave a lot of people a rough ride. A lot of people with blue check marks and who, Pat Moran, Gelber, Uber Hansen, all these people who I'm not going to try to take away from what they do, right? And this isn't a personal attack. It's nothing. It's what it is though, the frustration where everybody who was bitching and moaning and screaming into the ether of social media about the Bills' first half. I want to talk to you about expectations because I had to read a book about management and about different things. And they said that frustration comes from expectation. That's a phrase. Frustration is born of expectation. You can't be mad about something if your expectation was that it would go poorly or that it would go the way that it's going. So I guess the question is, what part about the Bills offseason told you that this was going to be a cakewalk? What part of eating over $60 million in dead money and admitting that we're doing a retooling, not a rebuild, but a retooling of our roster, said to you, Chris, this is going to be easy because we're overflowing with talent? Was there anything of that sort?
No.
And yet I see this stuff from people, and I catch myself doing it in the moment, but I've learned to check myself. Now, there's an unfortunate friend of mine who's a Colts fan and has been his entire life. We used to talk about it during the Bills drought, where I would bitch about the Bills not being good enough to qualify for the playoffs. And he would turn around and go, yeah, well, would you want to be in my shoes? My team makes the playoffs, and I just constantly have to worry about how they're going to embarrass us next. And I feel like that's where we've lived for a while, haven't we, Chris?
Yes.
The Bills during this run of Josh Allen's here, from 2020 to 2023, have lived under the shadow of this idea that, okay, how are they going to disappoint us next? What's going to happen? What's going to go wrong? Like, you're hoping and praying that the bad thing doesn't come. Guys, this is NFL football. Bad things happen. Not everybody can win. If you make it to the final 6 teams, you should look down the mountain at the bodies scattered all over it and go, hey, we're pretty fucking good. But that's not what we do as fans. We internalize that and we lament the missed opportunity because we know how close we are to the top. And we know after decades as Bills fans of being so far from it that it's almost worse that we can almost touch the top of the mountain, but we can't seem to get there. I completely understand this. But let's talk about expectations. See, the negative reaction that the first half of this game elicited is kind of a like how you felt is a litmus test for how you came into the season and what your expectations were. If you were a person who was screaming into the social media ether about how bad this team was, it's probably because you came into 2024 with expectations, which was foolish because the team did everything they could to show you who they were going to be. They were going to pare down this roster. They were going to try to be cost effective so that they could start re-signing players like Spencer Brown, lining up contract extensions for Khalil Shakir, Christian Benford, Terrell Bernard. They still got a lot of work to do. For people who think this is going to get better long-term, we only have $10 million in cap space today, next year. But we still have to find a way to retain a large number of players. The foundation is being rebuilt here. And so if you thought that there weren't going to be growing pains, then that's on you. It's not on the football team. It all comes down to expectations. And Chris, you said something earlier about why can't we just see 4 quarters of what we saw in the second half? Do you have any idea how insane that is? You want a team to outscore its opponent by 20 points every single quarter. Do you know that that's never happened in NFL history? What you're asking for is a statistical impossibility. You as a fan may want it. We can all want it. We can all want 4 quarters of a football game where our team just boat races. Do you know that that doesn't happen anywhere outside of college football?
All I'm asking for is once a season, give me something in the realm of Patriot wildcard game. Again,
that was historical. Once a year you want them to make history.
Remember the Denver Saturday afternoon game? Jake Kumaro touchdown down the something like that. I just want to cruise through an entire game, maybe 10 points a quarter, a touchdown a quarter, maybe 2, and we just fucking roll. I don't like this. What was it at halftime? 10-0, 10-3. And the Arizona game this year was like 17-3 at halftime, 17-10. I don't like that, and it gives me anxiety.
Do you
come out of the gate and fuck shit up?
Do you know the entitlement?
You know who's
you say that with?
You know who's doing that right now?
Who?
Buffalo Sabres.
What's the score?
Dallas just finally got on the board. It's 3-1.
Oh, good. So they're winning 3-1. The Sabres have pissed away 3-goal leads. That doesn't mean anything to me. Chris, you're talking about a team that has won games 47-10, 31-10, now 34-10. What more do you want? They're dominating their opponents, and yet it's not happening fast enough for you.
I want a Jaguar game.
But they can't all be Jaguars games because it's the NFL. If you genuinely need that in order to, like, Chris, to love this is to love the anxiety, to hang on to it, to grab it with both hands, because the adrenaline rush that comes when you have that game and you can grab onto it and white knuckle it down and then it goes your way, there's nothing like it. There's nothing. Football is an emotional sport. Baseball is nothing but math. It's all mathematics. Hockey is very neutered in terms of emotion. The coaches, the players, the way the fans react to goals, everyone stands and they golf clap and then they sit down. Football is the most emotional North American sport. It's why it's the most popular, because it grabs you. Guys, you want something. Right? You're asking for 10 points, 15 points a quarter. The hell's wrong with you? That's not how football gets played at the NFL level. Again, the only time you see a team score 10 to 15 points more than their opponent per quarter is Alabama when they play Troy because they're warming up for the Iron Bowl. That's it. In a league with parity, with grown men who get paid millions of dollars, what the Bills are doing even now is special. Embrace that. Don't get caught up in this feeling of, oh my God, well, what next? Well, what if we lose? So what? This was supposed to be a season where we were going to lose. And instead, we're a 5-2 football team, and we've beaten multiple opponents by 20 or more points. They're doing the thing that they've done all along, and they're doing it with worse pieces, with less cap space, and yet people still have criticisms. It's wild that I have somehow hopped to the other side of the fence, and I'm standing over here watching all of these people who I know to be intelligent or not, I don't know, but stand where I used to stand as the emotional the captive of the moment. Can't leave it just, I'm drunk and I'm mad that things in this moment are not going my way. And I'm blessed with this clarity to be able to look back and go, guys, the Buffalo Bills right now are doing something incredibly special at a time when they shouldn't be doing anything. This team should be dead in the water. And they're not. You have a quarterback who hasn't thrown an interception. He actually has a better he's 12 points more accurate than he has been in seasons past in terms of on target percentage. No interceptions. You've got a team that has we have one blowout and one close loss that could have been a win. And this is supposed to be the pared down version of it, the retooling version of it. Guys, at a certain point, we have to stop being captives of the moment. And that's crazy coming out of my mouth. That's how you know you've gone too far. Is when I'm no longer on your team and you want to scream about the team and the coaching staff and the mistakes. If I'm not on your side, then you know you've crossed into uncharted territory. We're 5-2. We are right in line with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens and at the top of the AFC. Kind of how you would have drawn it up a year ago if you had said that we were still Super Bowl contenders.
But Drew, we don't have tiebreakers.
I'll fight the tiebreaker crowd because at this point, guys, can you not just sit back and enjoy what we have? Now, Joe Miller in the comments, 9 for 30 was definitely special. Joe has a point. They're not all going to be pretty. You are a watered down roster. You do have a coaching staff that has issues. You probably will. You're not the best in the NFL. Understand that. Also understand that it's that dynamic that makes what we're watching more special. When they're able to put out that type of production. Look at this. Drew clearly didn't watch the Ravens last night. No, the Ravens are an absolute buzzsaw. They're a machine. Yeah, the Bills should be scared of them if what you thought was they were going to win a Super Bowl this year. The Ravens look like a team that are perfectly loaded up and ready for it. The Kansas City Chiefs are still the Chiefs somehow. And then right there riding their coattails are this imperfect, weirdly flawed, yet finding ways to succeed Buffalo Bills team. I don't know. I almost find them a little more fun to root for when I go into it with the mindset that, hey, we're going to struggle. I no longer have the expectation that some of you have, where it's like, oh, because we have Josh Allen, we should go out there and dominate every week. No, we have a roster that is subpar compared to a lot of football teams. Whether it's the trenches, whether it's the interior offensive line, whether it's our skill position players, just in terms of even from the growth that I was crowing about earlier tonight, whether it's in terms of their experience and just their ability to replicate success, the Buffalo Bills are a pared down roster compared to the other teams that have 5 wins. But here we are, baby. And doesn't that feel good? So rather than scream about all the things that are wrong, wouldn't you rather embrace all the things that should have gone wrong and yet are still going right? All of the guys who are stepping up to fill voids. Young players, Dorian Williams stepping in after being maligned and being like, oh, he can never play coverage. He's doing the job. And the team is playing well against mediocre competition. In the battle of middling, you are better. You are still better, even at your worst, than some of these other teams. And that should give you a warm, fuzzy feeling in the center of your chest. If it doesn't, I suggest you open up another one of these golden bullets, pour that down the hatch. Guys, this game, this tailgate was catharsis. Everything about it was great. And it gave me a lot of clarity on this football team that I'm hoping I can personally maintain going forward. And I implore some of you to come with me. Come with me on this journey of having fewer expectations. Just take the ride. Okay? Come with me. I can say this. It may not end well, but at least you'll have a good time. Guys, this has been a lot of fun, but for tonight, I got to get out of here. I'm Drew Gear. That's Chris Kruger. And this has been your Rockpile Report.